Hello, we're continuing to read American Oligarchy. Took yesterday off, it's my birthday. I got my fresh cut from Bosco. Bosco is a guy who does cuts out here. 50th birthday, he gave me a design. He said I wouldn't keep it. I was like, I don't care. Just put it in there. As long as basically all this is cleaned up and I look like a human being. When you don't have stable housing, you have to at least look like a human being. As a black man, they're scared enough of me, so I don't want to make it extra scary if I can help that. Um, so let's get into it. Scrutiny of nonprofit salaries became even more intense as the country plunged into a recession in 2008-2009, created largely by excessively compensated executives at financial institutions who engaged in fraudulent activities involving billions of dollars. After these institutions were rescued by the federal government's infusion of billions of taxpayer dollars, revelations that the perpetrators of the Wall Street debacle subsequently enjoyed generous compensation and bonuses sparked public outrage and focused attention on increasing economic inequality. The backlash engulfed a nonprofit sector already shaken by a decade of negative publicity and growing public distrust. State attorneys general throughout the country stepped up investigations on nonprofits with prosecutions of fraud and criminal activity. Few officials took an interest in exorbitant salaries. In 2011, Massachusetts Attorney General Martha Coakley published an investigative report finding that compensation for board members of the state's four major charitable health insurers was unjustified. The overwhelming majority of other charities' boards members received no compensation in contrast to those of Blue Cross Blue Shield, Fallon Health Plan, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, and Tufts Health Plan. Coakley also criticized a severance package of $11 million for Blue Cross CEO Cleve Killingsworth as symptomatic of excessive pay in the sector. When Blue Cross responded to a storm of negative publicity by rebating $4.2 million to its customers, amounting to about $2 per person, without clawing back anything from Killingworth, many of those receiving the rebate derided it as a joke that underlined inequality in the economy. So all you people who don't want universal health care, and I know why you don't want it, you just don't want certain people to have health care for quote unquote doing nothing. This is what you're paying for. So good on you. Amid a growing sentiment among charity watchers that nonprofit CEOs who want for-profit salaries should work at for-profit companies, Coakley next took on CEO compensations at 25 large nonprofits, health insurers, universities, and charitable organizations, and reported that rich nonprofits are paying their chief executives huge amounts of money and giving them lavish perks unavailable to most workers. Salaries range from $487,000 to $8.8 million, and perks included bonuses, deferred compensation, and auto allowances, financial planning, life insurance, and other benefits. The highest paid were university presidents and hospital CEOs. Her report challenged the defense that large packages are necessary to attract and retain talent, but did not recommend salary caps. Rather, that boards reconsider the mission and look at how executive pay compares to other workers' salaries. The next year, New York Governor Cuomo, here we go, he's just got this was today was his last day, he had to step down, proposed salary caps on certain nonprofits acting after learning that two brothers, Philip and Joe Levy, who ran a disabilities development home funded almost entirely with Medicaid, gave themselves salaries of $1 million. If an organization received more than $500,000 from the state in a year, And with state funding at 30% or more of their annual income, its executives must earn less than $199,000 in compensation. Challenged, gee, that's a lot of money. Challenged in court, conflicting decisions stalled the cap. Although both Maine and New Hampshire looked into excessive compensation for nonprofit managers, neither took action. Executives with nonprofits that receive tax money often enjoyed private sector perks as well as salaries. From 2000 to 2013, the San Diego Opera received $1.1 million in discretionary grants and over $700,000 in National Endowment for Arts grants. Its top executive, Ian Campbell, was paid over $500,000 in 2012, a year in which the opera put on 4 productions and 16 performances in its 4-month season. In San Diego, too, Scripps Research Institute's $423.9 million in revenue, including $290 million in government grants. The majority of its income and paid its president $980,000 and a housing allowance. On the other hand, Feeding American San Diego, which says it helps 73,000 needy people in a given week, the revenue of $32.5 million in 2012 paid its executive director about $105,000 annually. Even when you notice the arts, even when you go to their most corrupt thing, it's $980,000, $1 million. But look at the healthcare, $11 million. It's terrible. The Great Recession buffeted nonprofits in another way. Cities across the country struggling with historically low budgets turned to not-for-profits volunteering tax contributions or pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. In 2011, Boston sent letters to its largest nonprofits asking for annual payments that would rise to a quarter of what they would owe if they paid property tax. Oh, man. By 2013, at least 420 non-for-profits paid pilots to cities, though most in small sums. The Northeast, especially Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, accounted for 75 to 80% of the payments, and most of the revenue came from 10 large organizations led by Harvard University. Crunched by the recession, some cities began taxing nonprofits outright, with the IRS requiring nonprofit hospitals to disclose specifics of their charity care, community benefits, and executive compensation. The Illinois Department of Revenue revoked the tax-exempt status of 3 nonprofit hospitals for insufficient free and discount care. That must be when they were closing all these hospitals down. The Tacoma, Washington, and City Council simply decided to charge 2 large nonprofit health systems the fullest possible business and occupation rate. Many cities nationwide saw their tax bases shrink with the recession, the bursting of the housing bubble, and the wealthy hospitals and universities buying property and removing it from the tax rolls. In 16 of 20 most populous cities, according to a governor analysis, tax-exempt properties today, 2012, account for a higher share of total assessed value than they did 5 years ago. In 2011, as the recession depended, the IRS revoked the tax-exempt status, and the $275,000 organization that had failed to file informal tax forms within 3 years. So there we go. We're going to go through this whole chapter, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. Nonprofit CEOs. American oligarchy. Try to stay safe. Try to stay sane.